Welcome back to the video, everyone. It is I, your host, Mr. Sean, and this is Chimera Miniatures' official YouTube channel. We're going to keep it spooky today, along with the rest of the theme of this month's episodes, and today we're going to be looking at some stories about neckbeards, nice guys, stalkers, just generally people you don't want to meet. Or date, as the case may be. I, of course, use this channel as a way to pitch my business, Chimera Miniatures, where I make all kinds of both safe-for-work and not-safe-for-work miniatures. I also have a Patreon. I did say in an earlier video this week that I would love, by the end of this year, to have 10 patrons, does not matter which tier. Sadly, I currently, at the time of recording, am back down to 0 patrons. There was some kind of issue with my one patron's account, so for the time being, I am back to 0 patrons. So if you want to technically be my first patron, now is the time. Anyway, of course, the best way to support the channel is to like, comment, and subscribe, pass the video around, and of course keep coming back for future videos. And with that being said, let's get to today's first story. Alright everybody, our first story today comes from r/dating horror stories user cartographer number 193 and is called Beware Harvard Men. For the Bosty ladies, I want to make sure none of you get caught up with this creep I just had to fight off. I just went on a date with this guy who goes to Harvard a few days ago. Yeah, you OP, you gotta worry about those Harvard men. They always like to pack their car in the Harvard yard, if you know what I mean. I thought he was so sweet for most of the date. He took me to a couple of bars in Cambridge and seemed so goofy, which I love. I actually had a great time during the date and thought he was super charming. But was he also wicked smart? But then we got back to his place so I could meet his cat, which is when shit hit the fan. Yeah, I think he was trying to meet your kitty, OP. He kept trying to kiss me, even though I wasn't really feeling it. I was definitely drunk and kept saying, "Stop, stop, stop." He pushed me onto his bed and started feeling me up and tried to finger me, but that's when I pushed him off. I don't remember much of what he was saying as I left, but I definitely heard "fucking bitch" thrown around. This isn't the first time I've dealt with an entitled jerk, so I'm mentally doing fine. But now I need to make sure none of my Boston ladies have to deal with his creeper ass. Be wary of Cambridge men who want you to return to their place to meet their cat. Just say no. OP, I know you said you're mentally fine, but I do think it is wrong for you to just push off the fact that this guy actually did attempt to assault you in a sexual manner, and that's not really something to just wave off. But definitely, yeah, I'd wait till at least the second or third date before you go home to meet someone's cat, and I do wish you the best in your future endeavors, and can definitely say, you know what, better luck next time, but maybe stay away from the Harvard yard, guys, you know. Our next story comes from r/niceguy stories and is written by user Ninja360R and is entitled, "Nice Guy Threatened to Kill Himself, but Still Got Dumped." This is not my story, but this is how it goes. I met him at a party, gave him a ride home, and after belting out "Don't Stop Believing" together, he asked for my number. We went on one date and texted for a week. Then Saturday morning, I woke up to 50+ texts that started with asking what I was doing, sleeping because I worked in the morning, and went all the way up to I should just kill myself since no one wants to talk to me. I told him that was unacceptable, as I had already told him I worked Saturday morning, but even if I hadn't, there's no reason to text me over 50 times. If I'm not answering, I'm not answering. He whined about being so nice and how good he was to me and blah 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 blah. Thankfully, when my friends asked why I was ignoring such a nice guy, showing them the text was enough for them to drop it. Sounds like whoever's story that was actually dodged one hell of a bullet. It's nice when people throw out their crazy before you leave yourself in any way truly vulnerable with them. Good job, whoever you are, for not falling for that type of emotional manipulation. I have friends who have stayed in relationships and even gotten married to that person because they said, if you ever leave me, I'll kill myself. And it's like, yeah, that's your cue to leave, and then they do what they do. Like, that's not on you, that's on them. Kudos to this story's protagonist for not falling for it, and for straight up being willing to call out that person when other people go, "Oh my god, why are you ignoring such a nice guy? He's so nice." Okay, then you date him. Alright guys, we're sticking around in nice guy stories for this next one by user Intricate Flaws, and it's entitled, "I Owed Him Sex, after 2 dates. I'm going to start off and say that I don't think that's actually the case, but let's read the story. First time poster in this sub, so sorry if I get things wrong. I've been on dating apps for a while now. I've met all sorts of horrible individuals, but this was probably one of the worst. I'd been talking to this guy for maybe 2 weeks before we planned a meetup. It went really well, and I agreed to a second date. Second date went really well too, and I was feeling good. Ooh, that's how they get you. It's the third date's where the real stuff comes out. He said he lived nearby and invited me over to watch a movie. I told him I'd be up for it, provided there were no expectations. He agreed and said he'd be respectful. So I followed him to his place, and he put in a movie. Before long, his hand was on my thigh, squeezing lightly. I immediately felt uncomfortable, but didn't move his hand away. I guess he saw this as permission and started groping harder, then pushed me back into the couch so he could lean over and kissed me. I turned my head away, but he forcibly moved me back into place and pushed his lips on mine. I sucked my lips into my mouth and went super still. When he realized he wasn't getting the reaction he wanted, he got off and sat further away on the couch, glaring at the TV. Not long after, he told me some BS story about a friend needing his help, and I gladly left. I felt violated and super uncomfortable, but happy to be out of there. He texted me later that night, saying he no longer wanted to meet again, and I agreed. He continued to tell me that after paying for 2 dates, even though I tried both times to pay for myself, that I owed him sex at the very least, and since I wasn't willing, I had wasted his time. He thought he was a high-quality guy and had treated me so well. I disagreed and quickly blocked him. A few months later, he messaged me from a new account asking for a date like nothing had happened. Again, blocked him. I've seen his profiles pop up again a few times on the app, but he hasn't tried to message me again. Look, to all you, in finger quotes, high-quality, high-value men out there, shut the fuck up, alright? If you have to call yourself a high-quality or high-value man, you probably aren't. If you are those things, other people might refer to you as them, but you will not be referring to yourself as that, because part of being high-quality is not throwing around the fact that you're high-quality. Also, guys, dating isn't difficult. Getting a date can be difficult, that's for sure, but when you're actually on the date, it's not hard to do. Now, I'm not talking about you shouldn't be nervous. I mean, especially if you're meeting a new person, nervousness is natural. But understand a couple of basic things. One, you don't have to go above and beyond. You don't have to pull out the A game, I guess you could call it, right away. I mean, you should certainly put effort in, but just find a way that you and the other person can enjoy each other's company. A date can honestly be anything. It doesn't have to be a movie. It doesn't have to be a fancy restaurant. It can be going somewhere, walking around, talking. Hell, you can go, if there's a really nice mall in your area, you can go on grab some ice cream and walk the mall. I mean, and just talk, get to know each other. And the second big thing about dating is know that it does not matter how many dates you have been on. You are not owed sex. It doesn't even matter what stage of the relationship you are in. You are not owed sex. And I have a great example that is fresh in my mind because at the time of recording, this actually happened yesterday. Now, I have been in my current relationship for over 4 years. And at the end of this month, I will be getting married to this person. Yesterday, when I recorded this, it was her birthday. And where did we do? We went on a day trip. What did we do on this day trip? We went to a bunch of stores and malls. We're in Ohio. We went all the way down to Florence, Kentucky. We went to a mall there. We went to some shops around there. We went to the Golden Corral for lunch because that's one of her favorites. Not a high-class restaurant, but certainly good, hearty food. And we went around to a couple of other malls in Ohio on our way back home, and we just walked and talked and had an amazing day. And despite, buying her food, ice cream, chauffeuring her around, what I was not entitled to and did not feel entitled to when we got home? There was no expectation of sex. Honestly, we both just spent the entire day walking around. We were both tired as fuck, so I don't think that was on either of our minds. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that we've been together 4 years. It doesn't matter that we're engaged, almost married, and it doesn't matter what all I did for her yesterday. I was at no point ever, it never crossed my mind that, hey, I'm doing all this. I deserve sex tonight. Because that's not how it works. And a high quality, high value man would realize that and not think, oh, I've paid for 2 dates, that if I don't get sex now, I've wasted my time. Because if you're just looking for a hookup, make that known. If you're looking to date someone and develop a connection, then you can certainly wait more than 2 dates for sex, but I don't think that's ever what this nice guy in this story, I don't think that's what he was ever trying for. He wanted a hookup. He was, alright, I gotta pay for the first date, gotta show her I'm a high quality guy, gotta pay for the second date, that just solidifies my high qualityness, but, I better be getting some pussy by the third date, because I've paid for 2 dates already, and that's exactly why he invited you over to his house, because he's like, alright, got the checklist, paid for 1 date, paid for 2 dates, now I bring her over to my place, and let's get busy, and then I'll never call her again. What a low-value male. Am I right, ladies? Alright guys, for our next story, we're hopping over to r/dating stories with a story by user Sophione entitled, Let the Beast Out. I had a nickname going as YSF666. It was a bad joke. Yeah, it is, I don't even get it. Nothing serious about it. A girl liked it, and we started catching up and went to our first date. She proposed to me to go to her place. At first I was kind of, yay! She was absolutely gorgeous. We arrived at her place, we started getting warmed on her couch. She stopped and asked me to wait for her to make herself more comfortable. She came back and told me she wanted to call the Beast. I followed her to her room. A pentagram was painted on her floor. She took my nickname literally. Kind of a weird date. There's only one comment with no response to this story. r/dating horror stories doesn't have a lot of members, and it comes from Panthomath42069 with the question, but did you smash? And honestly, I kind of want to know that myself. Like, this was definitely a weird situation, but it kind of just left off. I mean, yeah, she thought you were the Beast. She wanted to get freaky in her pentagram room. Did you oblige, OP? Did you oblige? I too have been in the situation of I might be getting laid, I also might be getting sacrificed, and you know what? Definitely worth the risk, but we need to know, OP, did you take that risk? Inquiring minds want to know. Alright guys, we got a couple more stories in this video before we're done for the day, but before we get to that, let me once again remind you about my business to which this entire channel owes its life, Chimera Miniatures. I call the business Chimera Miniatures because it started with me taking bits and pieces of various miniatures, cutting, pasting, all that, and kind of cobbling together a completely new creature, a chimera, if you will. I know the official term is kit bashing, but chimera sounds cooler. And then I had a couple of figures that just so happened to feature nudity, like this was an actual part of the figure, based on various bits and pieces of models you can find, and those ones ended up selling much quicker. So I thought, hey, back in the day, I remember there was a guy I used to see on eBay who would sell not safe for work repaints of minis, and I was like, maybe there's still a market for that. And you know what? There kind of is. So that's when I also added the not safe for work HeroClix repaint line to my miniatures. So whether you're looking for a one-of-a-kind monster or just to bring some tits to your tabletop, Chimera Miniatures has what you need. I sell on eBay, Etsy, and Mercari, as well as I also sell various collectibles, stuffed animals, any kind of piece I can get my hand on that I think you might enjoy purchasing. As mentioned before, I also have a Patreon if you would like to donate monetarily without actually purchasing a miniature. I do have $3, $5, and $10 monthly tiers. Thank you for your time. Let's get back to the stories. Our next story comes from the subreddit Let's Not Meet, and is from user Isaballs, and is entitled The Cartoon Character Stalker. This one is tagged as not safe for work, so please be warned. My parents had purchased a condo about 10 minutes from their home, around the time my older brother was born, with the intention that my siblings and I have the option of renting it when we would come of age. I moved in alongside my brother a few weeks after my 18th birthday, exhilarated by the freedom from our childhood home, which had become laden with traumatic memories over the years. The move took 2 or 3 days, and we had a U-Haul coming in and out of the driveway during that time. My first day of college occurred a few days later. I had a full schedule 3 days a week, which I would later regret, with my last class getting out at 6 p.m. The city I live in is notorious for heavy traffic, and I would not get home until roughly an hour and a half later, despite the university being less than 15 minutes away. The sun was mostly down by the time I turned into my street, and there were a few people, some accompanied and one alone, taking their evening strolls. There was nothing remarkable about it. The driveway was occupied, so I parked on the street and made my way home. The following day, I got off my closing shift at 9 p.m. It was dark by the time I got home, and there was a man walking on the strip of sidewalk that faces the condo. I would not have noticed that he was the lone man from the evening before, if it was not for him wearing the same outfit: a bright yellow hoodie, black nylon track pants with white pinstripes, gray Nike trainers, and a tan baseball cap. As I got out of my car, we shared a quick glance and continued on our ways. 2 days later, I got off my closing shift and picked my now ex-boyfriend up for a date. We went back to the condo so I could change, and in the dark, I saw the man again, wearing the same outfit and on the same strip of sidewalk. "It's him again." I sounded more surprised than sussed out, and my boyfriend was confused. I explained that I had been seeing him walking around and that he was always wearing the same thing. We got out of the car and stared at him. Our bodies turned towards him. He ducked behind a car. Now properly sussed out, we got back in my car and watched him get into his and drive away with his lights off. It was too dark and he was too far away for us to catch a license plate. At this point, I was not sure if this man even lived in the neighborhood. We went about our night and I dropped my boyfriend back off at his parents' house. He told me told me to call him or the police if I saw the man again, and I agreed. I got home around midnight. The man was a street away from his usual spot, crouching below a tree and hugging his knees under his chin. I drove past him and noticed a different man in blue flannel and jeans approaching a streetlight. He got under the illuminating glow and pulled his phone out, attempting to make a call. I was unsure if the two men had any association with each other until I looked back over at the yellow hoodie man. He was no longer under the tree. He was also under a streetlight, a few meters away from the tree. His back was turned to me, but it appeared as though he was taking a call. As I looked back and forth between the two men, it became pretty obvious that they were communicating with each other. I drove away and called the police. They told me to stay where I was or to go to another safe location, and that they would contact me when the matter was taken care of. I dozed off and was awoken maybe an hour later by the promised phone call. I was told that neither of the men were residents of the area, and that they were simply told not to come back on reports of suspicious activity. After being advised to call again if they came back, I went home. I was tired enough that I had no trouble sleeping for a little while. Around 4 a.m., I was sharply roused by the metal screen door rattling against its frame. The force slowly grew in intensity, and eventually the walls and floor were quaking. I peeked through the blinds of my second-story window, which overlooks the front door, and of course, saw the man in the yellow hoodie aggressively attempting to open the screen door. I was shaking in my boots on my mattress, which was still on the floor as I had not yet purchased a bed framed. I received a call from my equally bewildered brother, who was in his room. I told him to call my dad while I called the police. It has now been almost 4 years, and I can assure you all that my street smarts have markedly improved. But OP, what happened after you called the police? Were the men arrested? I want some details. I was definitely intrigued as to what was going to happen. It seems like the police talked to these guys, so they would probably know their identities. So were they able to do anything? Are these guys in prison? Again, inquiring minds want to know. Our next story from Let's Not Meet is from Alexander Blotsky and is entitled Bullied Turn Creepy Weird Sexual Stalkers. Again, tagged not safe for work. I've been watching horror stories about stalkers from channels like Miss Reaper on YouTube, and I decided to share my own experience. I don't know Miss Reaper, I might have to check that one out. This all started back when I was in 3rd grade, which was 2014 to 15, and I met this group of guys who I'm just going to refer to as the sports guys. I don't remember how it started, but I remember one day in school where we had to bring some chip bags, and I remember some of them did this pee thing and tried shoving it up to me before they destroyed my bag. This wasn't the only time something similar happened. A few times later, maybe even before that, they would even compliment my butt, and they've complimented some of my body parts throughout the years from 2016 to now. This story's already fucking weird. Fast forward to high school. Back in my sophomore year, two sports guys would often make fun of selfies I posted on Instagram, but would touch my legs several times and make a kissing face like, and got to the point where I had to report them for bullying because I didn't know how much sexual harassment. I didn't know much about sexual harassment at the time, but yeah, I know they still think of me all the time. This past year, early January, one sport guy talked to me like all the time, and not one day would he not talk to me. This even went when we were taking notes and even said I was racist because I didn't give him a fist pump. He would even shout my last name whenever he saw me outside from his car. Later that month, one sport guy from middle school started to remember me and said, "Oh, how I missed ya," proving that the sport guys are so mentally delusional and are so obsessed with me, it's kind of creepy actually. And there was one day where I stood up to him and he showed me his private area. Later, this same sport guy and some of his friends would even try to follow me when I headed to my fourth hour at times, and yes, I reported them, and it stopped the issue. Fast forward to the last week of school, one sport guy who asked me what I got on the exam, but I ignored him because of how bad that guy was. He ended up touching my neck a few times, and some people saw. It was that same week that my mom found out about someone showing me his private area, and the reason why I didn't tell her is because she was going through so much with my dad, and I didn't want her to get more upset that her son was getting stalked and sexually harassed. Needless to say, I'm not looking forward to my senior year of high school, especially with guys like this around. A lot of people in the comments are telling OP that they need to just be reporting and documenting all of this, and OP has definitely stated that yes, next time they do anything, they're going to report them, which is really good because this is really awful behavior, and I don't know, it's one of those things where I don't really know what's going on. I don't know if they're doing this because these bullies are doing this because they're attracted to OP, or if they think it will make OP uncomfortable, but one way or the other, this is just wrong, and it sounds like it's been allowed to go on for way too long. I think this story serves as a good lesson that if anybody is treating you this way or some way similar, don't stay silent. Tell people. Report. I don't care who you are, you have the right to be treated with basic human dignity and respect. And, you know, I don't know OP's race. I don't know the race of the bullies. There was that comment about him being racist for not returning a fist bump there. But, like, again, it doesn't matter what race OP is. It doesn't matter OP's sexuality. You know, it's like you're not racist and you're not homophobic for not being okay with them acting like this. These people, it has nothing to do with their race, with their sexuality. They are predators and they are assaulters, and that cannot be allowed. Fun fact, it is not illegal to be racist or to be homophobic. It's not a good thing, but it's not illegal. It is illegal to sexually harass other people, so clearly there is one group that is in the wrong here. Alright everybody, I've got one more story for you. Hopefully it's a little more lighthearted than some of the last couple of stories. This one comes from r/neckbeard stories and is by user similar percentage 3 and is entitled "My Neckbeard Cousin That Once Tried to Date Me." My neckbeard story comes from my high school days in the late 90s. We didn't actually have many neckbeards, only about 12 out of all 4 years going there, and most of them were decent people. Kinda weird, kinda smelly, but overall okay. I mean, yeah, you honestly just described high schoolers. They're all kinda weird and kinda smelly, but overall, most of them are okay. But the star of my story was like the king neckbeard. Short, fat, he would explain to you that he is husky in a condescending voice. Scraggly facial hair that mostly grew on his neck/double chin region. Fashion sense wasn't too weird, but we lived in the South in the 90s, so you didn't get much of the more risque anime stuff going on then. Mostly Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, and Pokemon shirts or weird, too tight polos and jeans. Stinky with a layer of Old Spice, you know, the old man kind, just to add to that touch of Basement Goblin. Now I also have to add that he was my cousin. I mean, it is the South, OP. Sorry. Remember this part, as it is especially important later on. This isn't a story about a one-time ordeal. Nay, this is a recounting of some of the bullshit this fucker pulled while we were in school. To start off, I was a grade ahead of him. I had one whole year before he came into school and miladied his way into notoriety, squeezing himself into my friend group and holding on for dear life until he found a few incels that worshipped him. We had been in the same elementary school as well, but he mostly kept to himself and wasn't that bad back then. We would talk once in a while, until my last year there. I can only assume he thought to ingrain himself so that he could have someone he knew the next year. But this was about that time that his neckbeard tendencies started. He was also constantly harassing my female friends, asking for dates as well as feel-ups. I did a video a while back about the difference between neckbeards, nice guys, and incels, and I don't remember if I brought this up, but one of the things about neckbeards is they just have so much undeserved confidence. I mean, even now, I don't think I could just randomly ask somebody that I'm not dating for a feel-up. It's kind of like, weird tangent, but when I was in high school, like I was a freshman in high school, and this report came out that actually turned out to be true, that two students, not sure if it was a boy and a girl, boy and a boy, whatever, but they had both been expelled from the middle school because one had been caught giving the other a blowjob in the men's bathroom. And all we could think is, damn, the balls on those. I could not have asked anybody for a BJ back when I was in middle school. I could barely talk to girls, but someone was able to finagle that. It was like, not the place to do that, but damn, the balls on that kid. And it's very neckbeardy in a way, is that they have all this confidence that they really shouldn't. And it comes out in the most weird sexual ways, and I just don't understand where the confidence comes from. Anyway, back to the story. Yes, you read that right. So you can imagine that my freshman year was awesome. No neckbeard cousin, no creepy stalker talking about how he learned how to please a woman by watching softcore porn on HBO at night. Oh, is that what you're supposed to watch? No forcing me into talking about Pokemon or Sailor Moon. Mind you, I am a fan of Sailor Moon and DBZ, but this boy was already writing hentai porn about them and trying to make me read it for him and critique it. Asking someone to critique your porn fanfic? No thank you. And no more smelling that weird mix of mayo, stale farts, grandpa cologne, and an old jizz sock. Gross. So yeah, I was excited. I get a year without him, and it lulled me into a sense of false security, making the next year all the more worse. Sophomore year rolls around, and at my school they put the freshmen and the sophomores together in the gym until we were sorted into our rooms. So there I sit, me and my friends chatting and catching up about the summer, when a shadow falls over me, and a few others too. I look up, and there he is in all his glory. For any of you that are older and remember a certain SNL character from that back then called It's Pat, please insert that image here. We shall now call him Turtlebeard, or TB for short. Apparently over the summer, he had gained a significant amount of weight, causing his neck to almost disappear between his shoulders and head, like a turtle hiding in its shell. The beginnings of a white trash goatee were starting, scraggly and patchy over his oily face, and also consisting of 3 different colors. Never trust a man with a multicolored beard, kids. Red, blonde, and brown. He was a brunette. He wore a shirt with a half-naked woman on the front proclaiming, "Mustaches are handlebars." The smell came next, causing one of my friends to gag and cover her face with her shirt. Like, if someone is literally gagging on your stench in front of you, how do you still remain blissfully unaware that you are not wanted? "I see you saved me a seat," TB said, squishing his way between me and another of my friends, smelling like he had shat himself right before he had joined us that morning. This in turn caused several of the people around me to move back, looking between me and this strange turtle man, and wondering just what the fuck was going on. Knowing he wouldn't be leaving anytime soon, I begrudgingly introduced him to everyone, subtly trying to use my notebook to fan his stench away. The people behind us did not appreciate this. Like, dude, at this point, someone needs to just straight up tell this dude he fucking stinks. I just sat back and watched the disaster begin after this. Within 10 minutes, he had offended every friend of mine, had grabbed one's tits, what the fuck? had asked 3 of them out, he began to get upset at their blatant disrespect for him. Whoa. Disrespect for him? You grabbed one of their tits. Jesus. This is a high school freshman. You should not feel okay doing that. As he loudly told me that I needed to find better friends, ones that didn't think they were better than everyone, after that he stood up, wafting his stink around as he marched away, blessedly going to harass someone else. Everything was more or less the same after that for a while. He'd harass girls he liked, got took to the office a few times for inappropriate touching, and was on a constant hunt for a fuck buddy. Wait, how many times do you have to grope women before the school will do more than just send you to the office? Well, this is the South in the 90s, I suppose. Boys will be boys. Follow up to the next year, and TB had grown more confident. I feel like he was way overconfident already. The newest influx of freshmen unfortunately included some very naive girls, the kind that have low self-esteem and are willing to do anything to have someone want them. I am by no means making fun of them, as I watched what these girls went through with his nasty ass and tried to tell him that they were worth more than that, and while some listened, most didn't until after he had hurt them. Third day of my junior year, he finds me sitting outside for lunch, swaggering over to my table with the grace of a drunken hippo, 2 incels following him like puppies. These boys lived vicariously through TB, which is a sad thing all on its own. "Hey!" he called, waving a stubby hand at me jauntily. He plopped down, making the poor picnic table bow under his weight. "So, I've got news," he began, waggling his brows. I gave an inward sigh, making sure not to breathe through my nose. "What?" I deadpanned, eyeing the 2 boys behind him and making them squirm. He followed my gaze, waving a hand flippantly. "That's name and name," he said as an introduction, turning back to me, looking miffed that he'd been interrupted. "Anyways, guess what?" he said, leering at me. "I got a girlfriend." Shock resonated through me, wondering what poor girl he'd scared into dating him. Had he been sneaking into the special ed classes? I wasn't sure, but I was kind of scared that he had. "Oh, that's awesome, TB, I said, sounding worried. He rolled his eyes, smiling greasily. Now, don't be so jealous. I'll still make time for my favorite cousin." He chuckled, patting me on the shoulder. Giving him a look of disbelief and feeling my stomach churn at his words, I scooted further away from him as he began telling me of his new girlfriend, who we will call Yoda, because that is exactly who she looked like. Oh God. Suddenly, it made sense in a sad way. This was a sweet and quiet girl who was bullied a lot for her looks and her height, one who would latch on to the first guy that looked her way. Making note to myself to talk to her later, I listened to his story of him wooing her. His words, not mine, oohing and awing at the right times, until he began joking about what all he thought he could get her to do. Just as a reminder, this is the same guy that was writing incest fics in the 7th grade, bestiality stories, and extremely graphic stuff, so you can imagine what all he talked about, even if it was slightly censored because I was there. I went off on him, telling him not to be so disgusting and that Yoda probably wouldn't appreciate him saying he'd let his friends have a go at her too. The incels immediately quieted, a look of quiet hatred coming over their faces as I told their leader off. But TB shrugged, laughing a bit and saying that it was just guys bullshitting and that I had no need to worry, not taking offense to what I said. He did that a lot. The bell rang, giving me a reason to escape. And after waving him off when he proposed walking me to class, I hurried inside, looking around for Yoda. God, OP, calling this girl Yoda is just so fucking mean. I didn't find her until last period. Seeing her in the restroom, I hoped she would listen to me, watching her light up as I called her name, and feeling bad that she had been caught up with him. I introduced myself and explained that I was TB's cousin. Watching her blush and smile, she gussed about how much of a nice guy he was, but I shushed her, asking me to let her tell her a few things. She listened, eyes welling up as I explained the conversation we'd had at lunch, but knowing it wouldn't make a difference. And sure enough, I was right. She told me that she appreciated me looking out for her and that she would be careful, but she'd give him a little while to see if he would change. I felt like banging my head against the wall. She thanked me, giving me a sudden hug before making her way out of the restroom and leaving me to worry about her even more. It took a week before she found me again, crying as she told me I was right, and that he had pressured her into having sex with him over the weekend and doing fucked up stuff to her that I'm sure still bothers her now years later. The worst part was that he invited the incels over to join in, and the only thing that saved her was his mom coming home early. She had gotten his mom to take her home immediately after, not having any contact with him for the rest of the weekend after that. She had avoided him when she came to school, finding me first thing. I cried with this girl, telling her how sorry I was. I asked her if she wanted to do anything about it, but she refused. She didn't want her mother to find out about what happened and was terrified of him making it worse. The best advice I could give her was to stay away from him, to avoid him, and get me if he tried anything. That advice wasn't needed though. Apparently he'd taken her avoidance as a breakup, and by the time I saw him again, he had another girl with him, a fat little legbeard we'll call Hog, as they are her brethren, though I'm insulting them with that description. God damn, OP. Hog was laughing/squealing at something TB was saying, his lackeys standing there like bodyguards. I wasn't joking about him being the king neckbeard in our part of the woods. He sees me, pulling Hog over with him and waving at me. I saw a frown mar Hog's face, jealousy boiling over as he sat next to me. "This is Hog," he gushed, pulling her down next to him and making the bench creak ominously. "I thought you were dating Yoda," I asked lightly, watching him roll his eyes. "She dumped me," he lied, "over the weekend. Didn't give me a reason, just called and said it was over." "Couldn't have anything to do with you pressuring her for sex, right? Or trying to fucking gangbang her?" I asked, my voice going cold. TB paled, while Hog stared at us, her piggy eyes alight with news of this drama. "She didn't complain," he finally spouted. "She was okay with the sex and wanted to try having a threesome," he whispered, trying to sound convincing, but I shook my head. "Bullshit, TB. That girl was terrified," I growled, making Hog swell up in anger. "It's not his fault she was a tease," she hissed, draping a fat arm around his shoulders protectively. Whatever face I made when she said that, this apparently scared TB, as he pushed her back and moved in front of her. "It's over now, though. We broke up. It was a miscommunication on both parts, as I thought she was okay with it," he said in a rush, looking terrified. I huffed, looking away from him. Just stop being a fucking skis, TB. Seriously, if you find someone that's just as gross as you, then by all means go at it, I said, looking back at Hog and watching her swell up even more with anger, but keeping her mouth shut. This was the last interaction we had for a while, as I couldn't stand the sight of him and his incels. Time moved on, and so did he. Hog was left behind a month later, who was replaced by Gopher. Gopher begat Barrel, and Barrel begat Chipmunk. Chipmunk begat Snaggletooth, and Snaggletooth begat Emo Big Bird. If I listed the rest, we'd surpass the Bible. So just know he made his way through the whole of the freshmen and most of the sophomore girls that were in the weird mousy category. Hey, what's wrong with weird mousy girls, OP? Jesus. You're really mean to these people. I mean, Hog sounded awful, but you give these people the worst nicknames. End of the year rolls around, and he hunts me down, apologizing about what had happened with Yoda, and telling me that he would apologize to her later as well. I pointed out that he hadn't all year, so why now? He gave me a side-eye, telling me that he hated me being disappointed in him, and that he wanted to fix it, that he missed us hanging out. Alarm bells rang louder than a drunk Quasimodo cutting loose at Notre Dame. Remember that important fact at the beginning? I'd always gotten a creepy feeling from TB, but had hoped that he wouldn't be so disgusting as to take any sort of action. He gave a splotchy blush, his double chin quivering with anticipation. "You know, we used to hang out at lunch, and we don't anymore. I miss that," he said quietly, side-eyeing me again, looking for my reaction. Swallowing back the vomit that threatened to come up, I shrugged, telling him that I mostly hung out with my friends at lunch, which I did to get away from him. He seemed to lose steam here, weakly giving me a sad goodbye, turning back to watch me, I guess hoping I'd call him back. Nah, didn't happen. Last day of school rolls around with him stalking me all day, asking me to sign his yearbook, asking me to come hang out that summer, and so forth. I sidestepped as much as I could, making imaginary plans that I had to attend to get out of seeing him. I honestly couldn't imagine the stench in the sweltering heat of a southern summer. So my senior year comes at last. Nothing amiss goes on at first. Just him generally stalking me and being creepy. He acquired a new incel over the summer, telling me how he and the other two looked up to himself, and that he helped them to be more social. All the while, all three of them looked like they would rape a dog if given the chance, and if it would stand still long enough. A month in, I start talking to a junior in one of my classes. Turns out he's semi-friends with TB. Semi meaning he's a really sweet guy and can't tell him to go the fuck away, so he puts up with him because he feels sorry for him. Talking turns into flirting, and we're tentatively discussing dating by October. Now at the time, my school used to have a yearly field trip to a fall festival thing, and we agreed to meet up there, making it a small first date, as most of the teachers didn't care what you did as long as nobody died and nothing was set on fire, so we'd have the freedom to do as we pleased. I don't know if I should give a giggity or not after that. Let's see how this date goes. We'll call him Guardian Angel, or GA, as that's kinda what he was after this point. The day rolls around, and sadly, I was stuck to the bus as I was a poor kid with no car. And sure enough, as I'm sitting there listening to my CD Walkman, yes, I'm that old, kiddies, and hoping we leave soon, I feel the bus shake and give way slightly. I look up and seen TB heaving himself up the steps, swaying as he pushed his folds past the seats. I ducked down, hoping he doesn't notice me, but today was not my day. He tried to push my things aside and sit beside me, but I pushed back, glaring at it. "Leave it! I want to stretch out later," I told him. He gave a very put upon sigh and moved to the seat in front of me, turning to face me, blasting me with the hot smell of summer garbage as he spoke. "Was hoping I'd see you today," he proclaimed, a creepy look in his eyes. "You wanna hang out?" I shook my head, taking off my headphones, knowing he wouldn't shut up and let me listen to music. "Nah, got a date," I said, not even looking at him as I shoved my Walkman back into my bag. I feel the seat jerk and looked up, seeing he had a death grip on it. "What?" I glanced around at the other people on the bus, blushing at their attention his outburst caused. "I said, I have a date," I gritted out, glaring at him. "With who?" he demanded, a sheen of sweat covering his reddened face. "GA," I said, grinning smugly. The dude was hot, so I was happy to brag. "GA?" he asked in disbelief, looking angrier by the second. He slammed himself back against the seat, too angry to speak at that point. He'd turn and glare at me every so often, and began to mutter under his breath about jocks, life being unfair, and how women were too stupid to know who they needed, not what they wanted. Yep, he said that. I shrugged, happy that he shut up finally, and pulled out my music once more as the bus pulled out, heading to the festival thingy. The entire bus ride was spent watching TB glare at me. He would say something, and I would point to my headphones, making him even madder. I knew that it would bite me in the ass later, but right now I didn't care. I just didn't want to deal with him. TB finally turns around and stops glaring at me the rest of the way, being one of the first to get off the bus when we get there, heaving his way past the other kids to get out. I take my time, seeing GA waiting on me outside. I also see TB and his minions glaring at GA a few yards away, TB muttering under his rancid breath the whole time. GA grins when I meet him, cocking his head back at TB. "What's up with him? He looked pissed when he got out," he asked. I had slightly explained what I thought was going on with TB to him before. He agreed that it did indeed sound like he was trying to get with me, gag, and that it was definitely disgusting too. But once I explained what happened on the bus, GA shook his head, glaring back at TB and making him pale slightly. "If that sick fuck tries anything else, you'll tell me, right?" he asked, getting a relieved nod from me. He grabbed my hand and led me off, both of us hoping to have a nice rest of the day. But alas, it was not to be. Well, it was mostly nice. I just like being dramatic. After about an hour of wandering around all the booths and rides, I noticed we had some stalkers, mostly because I turned around and saw TB trying to hide himself behind a telephone pole. Try being the operative word. Thinking that the fat goon was just being a creeper, I didn't tell GA, as I was enjoying the day with him and didn't want to ruin it with TB and his creepiness. That was a big mistake, boys and girls. I forgot about TB after a while, letting GA lead me around to where he wanted to go. We ended up at the ride that I was too terrified to go on, and I told him I'd wait for him so he could ride it. I waved off his protests about leaving me and shoved him forward towards the ride with a laugh, telling him I'd keep my feet on the ground and wait for him to come back. He kissed my cheek and ran off like an excited 5-year-old, leaving me behind a small building that held the generators for the rides. I sat down against it, happy to be in the shade for once that day, when an exceptionally large shadow fell in front of me, blocking my view of the ride. "Having fun?" TB asked snidely, glaring down at me. I went to stand up, and he moved closer, shoving his girth towards me to keep me from doing so. I moved to the side, jumping up in disgust and moving back away from him. "The fuck is your problem?" I asked, crossing my arms over my chest. He moved closer, his incels flanking him and turning to face the crowd, trying to block us from view. "My problem is that after all of this time of being there for you, being nice to you, you go and get with someone else," he grunted, inching closer. "You sick fuck! We're kin," I hissed, arms going to my sides and hands forming into fists, ready to fight him if I had to. He shrugged, trying to look pitiful, but coming off looking like a deranged ogre. "I've been in love with you for years," he exclaimed, "and I don't care. I asked your mom and she said it was all right. We're only third cousins, so it doesn't count." I stared at him in utter disbelief, trying to comprehend the words that just came from him, and wondering just how the fuck I was going to get out of this. "TB, that's fucking disgusting," I ranted. "That's, if you just give us a chance," he yelled over me, moving closer. "You just had to be a bitch though, didn't you? Just had to go out and whore yourself to the first guy that would have you." At this point, spittle was flying as he raged, and a vein had popped up on his forehead. He moved faster than I thought him capable of, pinning me against the wall at my back. "I'll show you, if you just give me a chance," he groaned, trying to lean in and kiss me. I lost it and screamed, overwhelmed by the smell of rotten food wafting from his spittle-covered mouth, when he was jerked back and I was freed. GA had him on the ground, beating the shit out of him faster than I could blink. He got quite a few hits in before someone pulled him off TV, leaving the fat lump on the ground crying. The next hour was spent explaining to our teachers and the cops what happened. Now this, boys and girls, will make some of you mad, but small town politics and all that, you know. No charges were pressed, as the cops said GA had punished TB, and that they didn't see any reason to involve the law. The cops laughed off the fact TB had attacked me, telling us all to behave ourselves, and left. My teacher, though, was pissed. He marched TB back to the bus, as well as his lackeys, telling me that if he even looked at me again, to let him know. TB would be getting suspended for 2 weeks, and the most my teacher could get, but that he would personally put him on probation after he returned. The best part of it all? Said teacher was also my cousin, and while TB's mom was just as gross as him, his dad was not, and he made a point to tell me in front of TB that he would be calling him personally. One of the perks of a small town. TB lost it at that point, sobbing his apologies and begging the teacher not to call his dad. Now, the ending is a bit happier. Oh, thank God. TB was AWOL for 2 months after that. Apparently, after the suspension, his dad added his own punishment. Being an army vet, he ran TB through a month and a half of boot camp, making him afraid to even piss without asking permission. He avoided me at school after that, running like his ass was on fire if he saw me. GA got the same treatment, except TB would cry sometimes in his vicinity, which I always wished he'd do around me too, but never did, unfortunately. After school, I moved on. I still hear about TB from time to time. Apparently, I wasn't the only cousin he set his sights on, using a couple of family reunions to try and pick up dates. I'm not even joking here. He's been through 4 marriages now and countless relationships, making me truly question humanity at times. I hope you all enjoyed my story as well as my trauma, and that you got a few laughs out of it. But please remember, never, ever underestimate a neckbeard who is intent on being with you. While it's funny now, at the time, if it wasn't for GA, I don't really want to know what might have happened. So please stay safe. I'm glad that this horror story has some funny parts and a happy ending, but yes, that is why these are horror stories, people, is that these are the people that feel this confident, this entitled to have what they want, even though they don't deserve what they want in any way, shape, or form, and even if they did, they're not entitled to it. This sense of entitlement, this sense of sexual confidence can be really scary. And I'm also really sad, though, that the cops didn't believe that a young boy trying to sexually assault his cousin in public didn't deserve anything more than a high school beatdown. I really think he should have gone to jail. The fact that he has managed to get himself 4 marriages and so many more relationships, yeah, it does make me believe that there are not a lot of good guys in this small town, because Turtlebeard seemed to be an option to so many people. And this guy is just a predator and honestly just a disgusting piece of human excrement. And I hate thinking, it sounds like his dad is a stand-up guy, but then why the hell did he get with Turtlebeard's supposedly absolutely disgusting mother? Like, what's the story behind that one? Anyway, OP, I'm glad you made it out relatively unscathed, though I do wish your cousin, third cousin, whatever, had faced a little bit more consequences for his actions. And that's going to be the video, guys. Thank you so much for joining me today. As I've stated in some previous videos and on the channel, this one actually is the last of the 8 videos that I'm recording. Not the last that will come out this month, but I'm trying to get these all recorded ahead of time due to my upcoming nuptials. And then I'll be taking the first week of November off from the channel, as I will be more or less on my honeymoon. It's kind of a staycation, as we do not feel like leaving our buddy Roro the ferret for that long a period of time, but we will be enjoying our lives as a newly married couple. So there will be no videos the first week in November, but I did go ahead and get all 8 of this month's videos recorded. Now that the audio's done, I just have to finish editing them, and they will be posted at the regular Wednesday, Saturday interval schedule. And then second week in November, I will be back. So of course, if you enjoy the channel, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Pass the videos around. Check the links, buy a mini, join the Patreon, and overall just keep coming back every Wednesday and Saturday for a brand new video. It means the most to me that you are all here and enjoy listening to my content. I'm Mr. Sean, this is Chimera Miniatures, and I sincerely hope that you alpha great day and an even beta tomorrow. Bye-bye.